Our contributions in education will be our legacy in this industry.
Whether it's through live education or maybe through social media, we're always trying to make a personal connection with you, the learner.
At Sanvia, we believe our smile is our business card and our personality is our logo. And how we make people feel after you experience our education and tools is our trademark.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us, my friends, and be a part of the Sanvia community.
Happy Monday to you all. Welcome to Mannequin Monday. Got great education coming for you this week. Please type into the chat where you're watching from. Today, of course, we have Mannequin Monday. Tomorrow, Transformation Tuesday with Carla Valenzuela. She's going to be sharing some beautifully braided updos. On the 25th, we have Amanda Ziegelman. They're going to be working with us for hand styling, creating beautiful texture. On the 25th also, and sorry, that's on Instagram Live. On the 25th, also back here on the YouTube and Facebook channel, we have Lindsay Olson joining us talking about the artist journey, talking about their journey through the hair industry and how that can support you. And then on the 26th, back over on our Instagram Live, we do have Blake Reed Evans coming on with us to share some bobs, angles, and shapes. On the 26th also, if you are working with a hair school, we have a special program called the Sanvia Skills Up Student Training Program. And you can head to sanvia.com/skillsup. And we've got more information if you want to have a little preview of that. And of course, if you are going to be in Chicago for ABS, we'd love to see you that weekend. Please come say hello. But today, we want to jump right into it because we've got great education for you. Today, we have our good friend, Mandy McCullough. Mandy has been behind the chair for almost 20 years, 2 decades. What, Mandy? And 16 of those years, she's been a Redken educator. She's the salon owner of Fix Salon in Seattle, Washington for 10 years. And on stage, her goal is to really just inspire each person in an inclusive way. And she's also driven to help career-minded hairdressers really live their best life through education and mentoring. So please, in the chat, if you'll help us welcome our good friend, Mandy McCullough. Good morning, Mandy.
Hey, Andrew. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. Andrew, thank you as always for that great introduction. Yeah, 20 years. I feel like it's starting to sound too long. It goes by so fast.
We can just hit like the reset button, you know.
Yeah, totally. Just like for a while. She's been doing hair for a while. Well, thank you to all of you who are returning back to Sanvia for more education. And thank you for those of you who are returning to listen to me and what I have to share with you in education today. Here's what we're talking about. I just want to give you a quick glimpse here. So look at this. This is the biggest thing what we're doing today. We're talking about long hair and long layers and how to get those U or V perimeter shapes with our clients. For all of your clients who want something new, but they don't want to lose any length. If you are one of those people who have a client who loves their long hair and says they want to change, can we do something different, but can you take off just like an inch? Right in the chat bar. Let's see. Who else has those clients out there who love their long hair but want to change? You know, because one of the things that's happening right now is we're still in that shag trend, the wolf cut trend, all of those things where we're short in the front and long to the back. Well, our long hair clients don't have to miss out on that. We can still provide that service for them. We just have to know the right tools and have the right mechanics to get there. So we're going to jump right in. I want to get right into this education so you guys have this to take back into the salon with you today. So here's my mannequin head. She's a little prepped up, prepped with some sectioning. We're going to talk about them in a second. But if the whole goal is, coming back here, if the whole goal is to do short to long, we're going to start in the perimeter. We're going to start right where it shows first, and we're going to put that, the princess cut. Pat Rice, I love it, the princess cut. We're going to start right where it matters in the perimeter. Now, the other thing is, one of my friends, Chris Barron, always says, what's the best way to eat an elephant? one bite at a time. We have to take something big and to put it into smaller bites. So that's exactly what we're doing. So you can see over here, I've sectioned this mannequin head into smaller sections through the perimeter. And I'm gonna go into more detail about that, how, when, why, and where in a minute. But I just wanna get into cutting some of this so you can kind of get the idea around it. Think of this like connect the dots. So I'm first gonna come in, I have some Samvia swivel shears here. These are wet cutting shears. I'm gonna cut some dots that we're gonna connect the lines to. And the first two dots that we have to find is where is the shortest piece going to live and where will the longest piece live through here. So what I'm going to do is when our consultation, I talk to my client and say, so where do you think you want the short pieces to be around your face? And she'll be like, oh, I don't know, cheekbone. I'll say I typically recommend between jawline and cheekbone. So we say right about here for the shortest pieces. If you look back at this perimeter line, you can see here's where these start falling in her face, okay? But this is all the perimeter cut. This isn't getting into like any tricky curtain fringe bang cut thing, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna come up here where she says, I want it to be somewhere between my jawline and my cheekbone. I'm gonna take the tiniest piece out of the front, and here, I'm gonna do this so you guys can see. I'm gonna take half of that. So I'm gonna take half of that, so it's a really tiny piece. That's how much I'm gonna take. And I'm gonna come in with my shears, and what I'm going to do is actually cut downwards at a little bit of an angle because I want it to be a hard line, but not a hard, solid perimeter line. Find where I want that guide to be. Let me see. Let me get over here so you guys can see better. I want you to watch me do this. Come in with that little tiny piece, know where I want the guide to be, and I'm just gonna come in and softly cut that guide in. So now you can see right there, there's the guide, and it goes short to long. So the shortest piece, which is right there, is hitting right about where I want it to be when it pulls away from her face, which is between her cheekbone and her jawline. Now let's go to where we want the longest piece to be. So the longest piece, she said she only wants to lose about 1 inch of her hair in length, okay? So we can do that. I can work with her on that. I'm gonna come to the back and come down, and I'm going to, let me show you right here. I'm gonna cut a guide. Here's this piece right here, and I'm gonna cut a tiny guide of about 1 inch off over on that side. So I have about 1 inch off, and I like, well, maybe a little bit more, but the ends needed to go. So here's a guide here, here's a guide in the front. Now, this is still a lot of connecting the dots. There's a lot going on between the short guide in the front and the long guide in the back. So what we're actually gonna do is work through in these individual sections and continue to build more guides through there. So what I wanna do is start visualizing where do I want that diagonal to be. If the shortest piece is here and the longest piece is here, I need to create some smaller guides that make sense with that. So now I'm going to come into my next section here, just like what I did before. I'm going to take a tiny piece and I'm going to start visualizing. Here's my shortest piece. There's my longest piece. So I'm going to come in and cut right about there. So now I have another guide that's a little bit longer than where I started in the front. And now I'm going to continue through and build another guide into the next section. And now here's the longest piece. I'm going to go here. This is going to be even longer. And I'm going to hold this up. Let me take this piece out and then I'm going to show you guys. There it is. And now this piece, I'm going to come in and cut right about there. So now what I have, so you can see, is I'm just creating dots that I'm going to connect. So I have the shortest piece right here, right between her cheekbone and her jawline. Then the next piece I have fits just about towards the end of her neck. And then as I come down, now it's getting longer all the way to the back through here. So now I have small dots to help connect those lines so it gets to be a smooth transition, not just on this side, but now when I go to the other side, I can recreate that because I know exactly what those guideline pieces are. So here's what I'm gonna do. Now I'm gonna come in, I'm actually gonna use a razor for this cut. So here's my razor, and I need to connect the dots. However, let's keep the rules of density in mind too. To me, with this client, when I look at what her density is, I know from in front of the ear, she doesn't have the hairline that connects all the way down. So there's less hair here. And based on her density, I can probably get my razor through pretty easily. However, from the top of the ear to the back of her head, Now we have a lot more density because the hair continues all the way down through the nape. So keeping in mind where these guide pieces are, I want to come in from behind the ear, and I'm going to secure this. I'm going to take a diagonal back section. So this is the way my line's going to go. And I'm going to just take off a little bit of a triangle piece of her hair just to make the density more consistent and even as I go through my section. Once I do that, I'm going to clip that out of the way. Now that's going to make it a lot easier for my razor to work more cleanly through my section. Let me just clip this other guy off really quickly here too. Perfect. And make sure everything's nice and tidy. So just to recap what we're doing today, long hair, long layers for every client who says, I want a change, but please don't take any length off. We really want to start moving them and transitioning them into the trends that we're seeing where hair is shorter in front, longer in back, but keeping it really easy. Plug and play, you guys, is what we're doing all day today. So now coming through, I'm going to start working with my razor. Now, when I work with the razor and I push the razor tends to push the hair, so I get hair that's going to go short, and then it always gets a little bit longer. So I always want to work the razor in the direction that the length is getting longer. So I'm going to start in the front and go all the way through. Let me switch her over to the other side. I think you guys will be able to see better. Now, I have my guide. Here's my first guide, and I'm going to connect the dots to my second guide, which is right here. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. Coming in. Now, I'm working with the Samvia razor, and this is the classic blade. So just the regular classic one. Brand new blade every client, and just because I'm not sure, I'm going to go ahead and switch it out. You know, these blades are super nice because they come with, I'm going to show you, this is so cool. Like, it has its own little razor collector there, so I don't ever have to worry about trying to find that. Oh, there we go. And then I'm going to put a new one on so it's fresh and new. A lot of times when we have clients that are afraid of razor, it's because at some point somebody cut their hair with the dull blade. So we want to make sure that it's always a fresh blade. And Andrew, I see a question on there. If the face is chubby, then how long should we cut our first guideline from the slim round face? What should we get from the length of the first guideline? So Sonia, great question. Thank you for asking that. So let's just talk about face shape for a minute, because it could be, we say maybe chubby, slim, or we can say round, square, whatever their face shape is. We want to keep that in mind, but sometimes that comes into play when we start working into how we're styling it as well. I mean, at the end of the day, we know that we want to keep our clients trend focused. And so it's going to be like, she still wants to have those layers around her face, but maybe we're going to talk about how much we're going to maximize or minimum the volume when we do her styling to either exaggerate or complement within that face shape. So I think try to educate our clients into the place. Now I'm looking for, there's my other guide. There's my piece right there coming down. And I'm connecting the dots. Let me go down here a little bit more so you guys can see. So just keeping that in mind, face shape, but we still want to stay on trend. So in order to do that, what has to happen is we need to make sure that we're talking about how are they going to style their hair at home as well to help meet with their face shape and whatever they want to exaggerate or enhance. Now I'm just coming through and make sure you can see. Long hair, you guys, long hair on camera. That's always takes a little bit more work. Here, and then I'm going to come in and take that off at the end. So now let's see what we're left with. Here's the perimeter. And you can see we're here getting longer, longer, all the way to the back. All right. Then this one triangle I took out for density, I'm going to go ahead and drop that back in. So the only reason we just took this, and remember this was a diagonal back line, we just took out from the top of the parietal ridge over the high point of the head into the back of the crown, just so that we didn't have so much hair to cut through with the razor, so we could still keep really nice clean lines. And of course, now this is easy because now I just have, let's see if I can do this. Now I just have a guide underneath that I just have to follow if there's any hair that's hanging over, and there's very little hair in that section because these mannequin heads are already pretty section. All right, so that's it. That's a perimeter, right? So here we go. Here's the perimeter. Now we've done that, and we already have our face framing bits in, as well as we're connecting it to the length in the back. So I want to talk a little bit more now about this section of taking these into smaller bites. So here's what we did. Now in Redken principle-based design, we work with a type of breakdown. This is called vertical breakdown. You can see this right here. If you guys have seen vertical breakdown, type in vertical in the comments for us today, so we can see how many of you have seen this before. Here's what we're really doing. A lot of times when we start working with head shape and we're working into a haircut, we go into 4 quadrants. How many of you put your heads into 4 quadrants to start your cutting? I totally do, which is great. However, the head is still so round that those 4 quadrants don't always match to the head shape. So we actually take those quadrants and break them down into smaller bites or bevels. So here we can see this is called vertical breakdown. And with vertical breakdown, what we've done is take the head from split side to side from the top all the way down, and then we take it from the high point of the head ear to ear. So that's your 4 quadrants. Then we actually split those in half again, so we get smaller bites or bevels. Now, the cool thing about this is if I put my comb right on top of a bevel, do you see how the hair just starts lifting off? The head starts lifting off at the end of the comb. So when I'm cutting into my perimeter line, this is going to give me a much more precise cut through the shape, because it's going to give me more of a round shape in the perimeter because it's mimicking the round shape of the head. So when I'm thinking about cutting the perimeter on my model today, I'm keeping in mind and putting her into that vertical breakdown. So what you can see, sorry, outfit wardrobe. So you can see over here, she has been pre-sectioned into vertical breakdown on one side of the head. I wanted to do this so you guys can see. And this is the sectioning that I use as I start thinking about what are the dots and where am I going to put my guide throughout this to start cutting that perimeter. So we're going to repeat this on the other side. I'm going to go ahead and drop these, but I'm still always thinking about this vertical breakdown in the head shape as I work through to find my pieces. And the guides are going to be the exact same as what they were on the other side. So remember, the first thing I did is I came in with shears. Now, why am I cutting my guide with shears versus razor? Razor tends to cut soft. Sometimes so soft it makes it hard for me to find my guides later. I found that coming in with a shear is going to give me a little bit harder line, and it's a little bit easier to see when I'm connecting my dots. Then when I connect it with the razor, it softens everything out. So that's why. So coming back through, now we have a guide I can just match in the front. So guide, here's a guide, right? So you can see there's my guide I'm going to use, and here's what I'm going to cut. Remember, the first time I come through, I'm going to put my shears at a little bit of an angle just so that it softens that for me. Now here's my guide on the other side. I'm going to continue around to every one of my bevels, creating another guide piece, a small bite. So here in this front, I'm going to come in, and this is going to come down to about her neck, is where we have the other one there. So here's my next guide. Now I'm going to come through into my next bevel, break this down, and it's going to be even a little bit longer to there. And we continue through where we're only taking 1 inch off the back, and that last bevel has already been cut previously. So I can come through and bring those together and find my guide. So let me show you. Here is my guide from my other side. There you go. See it right there? And I just want to match that to this side so I can come in and cut again. Now that I have those small bits, now I can come through and cut them and connect the dots. So starting here, I'm going from this guide down to this guide. So come in with my razor. Now remember, when you work with a razor, what I want to make sure happens is I want my razor to be up and down and have peaks and valleys in it. So what I want to do is I don't want my blade to be flat to the hair. I actually want it to be perpendicular to the hair, right? Because that's what, as I come through, I'll do this as an example. It's going to give me peaks and valleys through that hair. You can kind of see it goes up and down, which is going to be stronger pieces of texture than if the blade sits on top. We'll get soft pieces of frothiness to the hair. So coming in, connecting my dots. There. Now I'm going to go to my next guide. I can see it in there, come through. And then come around and connect the back and the back.
Mandy, do you always work with wet hair when you're cutting with a razor?
Oh, good question, Andrew. I tend to prefer to work with wet hair when I cut with the razor. It gives more, like the hydration just helps to moisturize the hair and keep the hair from fuzzing out so much. The other thing that I swear by, I always prep the hair with, is make sure you always have some kind of cutting lotion in the hair. So this is Redken's One United with 25 benefits. For me, when I use this with the razor, what I'm getting with it is it's going to help moisturize and hydrate the hair so it doesn't let those little ends fuzz out. So you'll stay in a lot more control and the hair will feel healthier when you do it that way. On the rare occasions I do cut on dry hair, because sometimes it happens, fresh blade. It has to be a brand new blade right out of the box. And if it's a lot of hair I'm cutting, I usually switch the blade up quite a bit. So those are my two kind of rules of thumb when it comes to working with the razor. So I just want to come back to this again, and we're going to talk about this from vertical breakdown, because we're using this to cut that short to long perimeter for even and consistency on both sides. Now, when I work through here, this is the first bevel that I work in, and I make my first guideline between her cheek and jawline. Then coming down, I just want to visualize, where do I want the end to be? Where do I want the end of her perimeter to be? And start connecting dots in each one of those bevels to connect all the way through. Now, the one thing that I found that is helpful, if you want it more like a U shape, so type U in the comments if you guys like a U-shaped perimeter. Let's see, type U in the comments if you like a U shape. Then in these two back center bevels, these are going to stay even and across. You're not going to continue the length of getting longer in the bottom. There, Danielle Rosario, U-shape. Awesome job. Susan, U-shape. Good. Karen, good job, you guys. U-shape. So these two bevels in the center back are going to stay even across, but you'll continue the angle as you come into the two corner bevels of the head. If you want it to be a true V shape, so now let's see those of you who like a true V shape, put V in the comments. For that, you're going to continue your V through your two center back bevels as well. So just keeping in mind, what is your control? Here's each one of your bevels that you're going to use to break one big piece into smaller pieces, and where you put those guides as you come down is going to help you, give you control. But if you want it to be a U shape, the two center back bevels will stay even. And if you want it to be a V shape, the two center back bevels will continue to be a V. So I hope that helps you guys with that information. All right, so here we have now our V-shaped girl, even on both sides, because we used all the guides. Also remember, if she has a lot of hair, I'll just resection this in this back again for you. If she has a lot of hair from the top of the ear or the high point of the head, what I want to do is take a diagonal back section on either side. And I really like sectioning out the crown area before I cut the perimeter, because that means that I'm going to have enough hair to stay in control. Let me make that a little tidier for you guys. There we go. So if I was cutting the perimeter, I would take this part, so you can see there's her face, take that part out of the head, so that the density of this, what's happening in the back, matches the density of what's happening on her side as well. Then once the perimeter is cut, then I can release this, comb it into place, and then cut into the rest of my perimeter. So that is perimeter. Super easy, super fast. And I'll tell you what, this girl right here, she already has just the perimeter cut. Now, because she's a mannequin head, she has a little bit of interior layers, but we're going to talk how to amp those up. But like, just look at how pretty this is. And we've done nothing else but cut the perimeter with those guide points along the way. And so already we're taking somebody who had long hair. She didn't want to lose her length, but she wanted a change. And now as she styles and curls this, it's going to be amplified for her. Her curl's going to hold better, and she's going to feel like she's much more on trend with what we're seeing out in hair right now than just have one length, all long hair with some layers in it. So, okay, let's keep going. Andrew, how's everybody doing? Do we have any questions coming up yet?
Doing great. Everyone's having a good time and learning tons. So keep going.
Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about some ways, one, to put graduation or layers in the hair. Then we're going to talk about how to remove weight, because those long hair girls a lot of times have tons of hair, and we have to figure out how to get rid of that for them in a way that works with their style. So now I'm going to still come back and think about this. I'm visualizing it in this vertical breakdown. So this is how I'm going to actually take my sections up for my layers and graduation. So let me find, I want to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So let me adjust this. There, a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to take this section and then I'm going to show you, and I'm going to clip this out of the way just so it's really easy to see. So let me clip this first and then I'll turn her around to you. Okay, good. So then I'm going to take these sections. Let me turn it this way. So first thing I'm just doing for sake, so you can see, I'm taking a part down center back and I'm just clipping half of it out of the way. Then I'm going to put this into vertical breakdown on dry hair so that you can see how I'm going to take these sections as I go through. And so remember, this is basically starting like if you were to section the hair into 4 quadrants, but then you split each one of those quadrants in half again to create smaller bites that more like better fit around the head shape. 4 quadrants, a quadrant is a really wide piece of real estate on the head, and the head has smaller round points. So now you can see how I am starting to mimic that just in this quadrant, what we have similar to here, all right, in vertical breakdown. Now, I want to create layers. I want to give her some fullness, but I don't want to remove length, right? That's the goal. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop my first section. I'm switched over. So these are my 7-inch dry cutting shears. Longer shear here, because when I want to point cut in, I need my shear to be longer. The shorter the shear, the less, oh, that's not even, where'd it go? Here. The shorter the shear, the less texture I can take out, right? So if my blade's short, look at how short that blade is next to the other one. I'm only going to get that much texture as I go through. With long hair, you guys, this is not going to save time. Longer shear is what's going to save you time. So coming in, now what I'm going to do is take this first bevel and I'm going to elevate it up, and I'm going to turn her so that we can see what's going to happen. I'm going to elevate this straight up. Now, I'm not going to stop here. Elevate it straight up. And now what I actually need to do is I need it to go, there's my sound. It needs to wrap over the head shape, okay? So not here, but it needs to go like this. Because think about this, do shears cut straight lines or do they cut curved lines? Type in the comments, let's see. What are you gonna type in? Let's see, somebody type it in there. I'm gonna check. Okay, I know you're thinking, there, Liz, nice job. Yeah, shears cut straight, right? So if I come through here and I cut this line, that's straight, but watch what happens. Now, look at that, it's a curved line. Because we're utilizing the head shape. So when this comes up and goes over the head shape and I cut it, it actually rounds out my shape. So her silhouette is going to be round and full. And I bet a lot of you are doing this in the salon, or you've seen somebody do this in the salon. Maybe you're doing this on your curly haired clients, but maybe you never quite thought about why did it work? What was it that made that happen? Using the head shape is actually giving us a round end result. Now I'm going to come in because I want to point cut into this. So I'm going to come through here. Let me get this where I know you guys can see better. Coming in, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to point cut in. Now notice my blade is working at an angle, almost a 45-degree angle. Here's the point cutting I'm doing. Friends like ends. So I want to make sure that I'm still leaving some ends so there's some density and control to it. I'm not just losing it and just super point cutting until it's soft and wispy. Then I'm going to drop it, come in. Now also because of that over direction, what happens here, you can start seeing that round silhouette that we're getting in the hair. What's happening is as I am over directing or elevating that hair all the way over, what's really happening with it is I'm also, any hair that's long is going to drop out. So when we have clients who have long hair, we know that this is going to work for them because you watch what happens. I'm going to take this section. Now I'm going to bring it up. Now watch what happens. This length is going to start dropping out. So it's really nice because it retains the length and the perimeter for me as well. Bring this all the way over. Then what we're going to do is come in and point cut. Make sure you guys can see almost a 45-degree angle. There's my point cut. Then I'm going to drop it down. And remember, we're doing this in what we call bevels, the smaller sections. If we take the quadrants and we split them in half again, we get what are called bevels. So that means that there's 4 bevels that I'm working with as I come through the back of the head.
Mandy, there's questions on how would you adapt this to someone that maybe has like finer, thinner hair or someone that even has thicker hair. So can you talk about how you would adapt this to different hair densities and textures?
Yes, and I'll say, you guys, high five to you guys out there. You're so on the right track. Once I get through with these layers, we're going to talk about how to switch this up for people who have low density hair versus some people who have high density hair. So just stay tuned. I'm going to get through these next 2 sections. And now that you guys have the mechanics of it, now I can go a little bit more in salon speed. So this is up, it's coming straight over. Then I can come in, point cut in. Now we're done with the back. Let me show you what we're getting. Now with that silhouette, look at that nice round silhouette. But look, she kept all of her length right there, but so much more fullness through here. We're going to continue this into the sides as well. So I'm going to come in, take my section, watch how the length is going to drop out so I don't even have to worry about it. Over to the other side, and then I can point cut into it. Same thing with this front piece all the way over. And then repeat on the other side. So now, a couple of things. When I have clients who have low density hair, and I think that, sometimes we say you have fine hair, you have thick hair, but think about it this way, because I know you have that client in your chair who has fine hair, but has a lot of it, right? So rather than determine this by texture, right, I want you to think about the abundance. So I might have somebody who has fine hair, but she has high density of fine hair, right? The abundance is still a lot, even though her hair is fine. So when we talk to our clients, rather than say you have fine hair, making them feel like that means that they don't have a lot of hair, fine hair actually is about the texture, the density of the individual strand, versus what's the abundance of hair on their head is going to be whether they're high density or low density. So when we have somebody who has fine hair, low density, this actually is a great technique for them for all the reasons and what we've already discussed. One, we're letting the perimeter fall out. We need to keep the perimeter on our clients who have low density hair. The more layers we put, we're taking away from the perimeter, and the more low density their seam, right? The more see-through the perimeter gets. So we really want to make sure that we're only taking off just the corner on what we see on that layer. So all of this hair is still contributing to the thickness of what it looks like down in the perimeter. So just this type of graduation is perfect. And I'll tell you, I work with Redken and I teach principle-based design, and this type of graduation, we call it swelling, because we're bringing the hair up over the head shape and swelling over the head shape to utilize the roundness of the head, so we get that round silhouette in the exterior of the shape. So now let's talk about when we have somebody who has high density hair, really, really high density, thick hair that we need to even take more weight out. Because especially with our long haired clients, like I was saying before, the value of long shear versus short shear, this is great even though I have a long shear, because that long shear can still get in farther. But look, it only goes this, how to show you? It only goes this far, right? Look at her hair is so long, it can't even fit it all in the camera to show you. So what's the point if I only take out here? Now we have to take out here in the mid shaft. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways. And I'm going to show you one way that's going to work great for people who have coarse, thick, high density hair, and another way that's going to be better for people who have more fine, high density hair, right? So abundance versus texture. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to my Artist Series slide cutting shears. And I love these. Do you see that curved line right there? So it's going to kind of push the hair as I cut it. So it's perfect for removing weight. Now what I'm going to do is come back into the hair and I am going to elevate it up. And now what I want to do is I need to work into this interior. Keep in mind, if I only texture in the ends, I'm just going to blend or soften the shape. If I come and cut into the mid shaft of the hair, now I'm literally removing weight and adding, most importantly, movement to the hair, all right? So you want those clients to feel like they can move their hair. If they curl it, there's some that's going to hold it. So you take out some of that weight, we have to get in there. Now, with my Artist Series slide cutting shears, the Samvia Artist Series slide cutting shear, here I'm going to put my shear in and I'm going to just talk. Then I'm going to go halfway in again and I'm going to talk that shear through. Now I'm going to come in again and talk that shear through. And then you can see all that hair that comes out. Here's the beauty of this shear. With that curved blade, it is, I don't know if I can, I mean, it's invisible. You can't see where that hair has left, but I have definitely taken out quite a bit of density. Look at how much more movement she has in her hair now. So I'm going to do it again, coming through. And this is with the Samvia Artist Series slide cutting shear, you guys, because it has the curved blade on it.
Would you do all these techniques on dry hair most of the time, or do you ever do this kind of cutting wet?
Yeah, great question, Andrew. I tend to do all my weight removal on dry hair because I visually need to see the impact that my actions are taking. If I do it on wet hair, because wet hair condenses in so much, it's really hard for me to get a true read on the hair. So when I'm talking about weight removal and texturizing, I tend to do it on dry hair. Razor, I prefer that weight removal on wet hair because for most hair types, it's the healthiest way to use the razor. So awesome question. Always important to know which one we're doing. So again, coming in, now I'm going to talk, and you can see here's all the hair. Look at all that hair that's coming out. But it's seamless because of the type of blade that I have. Now, can I do this with a regular straight shear blade? Of course you can. But think about it this way. I think we've mentioned it before. I know Roger Molina's talked about it before on the Samvia channels. That, you know, at one point in time, when you first started coloring hair, you had your color retouch brush, right? Then as trends change and techniques change, now I bet you have a brush that you love for balayage, and I bet you have a brush that you love when you do huge hand painting, right? Like how many different color brushes do you have? Could you do it all with a color, just traditional retouch brush? You totally can, totally can. But did it make your life a lot easier when you found that perfect made for balayage brush? So yes, you could totally do this technique with straight shears as well, but is it more effective and easier for me to do when I use the right tool for the right technique as well? It totally does. So that's one way. Remember, we're getting through the mid shaft to the ends, so we get movement. When we just texturize in the ends, we get blending. So it's important that we work through movement. Now, I'm going to show you another technique. Now I'm going to switch, and let's see, I'm actually going to go back to my 7-inch dry cutting shears. Now, what I found happens is, especially people who have straight hair, when we start removing weight, sometimes it's more visible, and so we need to create more invisible layers. I think we're hearing a lot about invisible layers right now. There's multiple ways to do it. I'm going to show you how I'm doing invisible layers, but they work especially well for our clients who have straight hair, whether it is fine, low density, or fine, heavy density, but straight hair. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to elevate this hair. Now what's going to happen, I'm going to show you, I'm going to take my shears and I'm going to go close as I go down, close as I go down, close as I go down, close as I go down. So now I'm going to go close as I go down, and it's almost like I'm back combing the hair, and it's a gentle movement. It's not really a forceful movement. But you can see how I'm almost just back combing with the hair, and every time I close, now watch what happens. Do you see this hair that's starting to come out from all of that weight removal? Okay, so now we're creating even more movement, but the hairs are so blended in that where I took them out, it's invisible and they don't see it. So this is so nice for our straight haired clients to create invisible layers, like truly they just can't see them, but it all of a sudden gives them more weight and movement. So let's do that again. I'm going to elevate this straight up. Now I'm coming in. I could use a shorter shear. I like the longer shear because, again, it gives me more control over where I'm going. I like to randomize where I place insert my shears. Sometimes it's up here. Sometimes it's down lower. Sometimes it's down lower, high, low, high, low. Okay, so here's close, 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 close. Then I'm going to take my comb and I'm going to go to the wide teeth of my comb. That's going to make it easier to comb. Look at all that weight that comes out. You guys, when you do this with clients in the salon, their emotion is kind of a mixture of like freaking out, but pure excitement because no one has ever successfully gotten rid of weight in their hair in this way before. So it's really fun to watch their faces when you take that hair out and then you comb through and all that hair comes out onto the floor. So now let's do this a little bit more in salon speed as I work around the head. I'm gonna come in, elevate this up. Now I'm gonna go through and break up that hair. And what I tend to do is work through my sections, then I'll comb them out. And now my shears are now switching to the wide teeth on my comb. I wish we had the slow motion camera so you can see, look at that hair that's coming out of their head. And look at how much more movement we're getting with all of that weight reduction in there. So just continuing around, and I'm gonna keep doing that. I need to go over to this side and remove some hair.
So I know you mentioned that this is particularly good for people with straight fabric. Would you consider doing something like this on curly hair?
Okay, so here's the beautiful thing, because a lot of times when we're doing this, we say, well, this works great for straight hair, but not so much for curly hair. First, swelling. So what we're doing with swelling, when we talk about that type of graduation, remember that's when we take the hair, elevate it up, 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 and all the way over the head shape. Using the head shape to create a round silhouette is awesome for curly hair. If you aren't doing this on curly hair, do. Now, keep in mind, the same thing like when we cut the perimeter of curly hair, a little bit of length off goes a long ways, right? I'm sure you've all had that where you like take an inch off and it bounces up 4 inches. So a little bit goes a long way. So when I'm doing this technique on curly hair, I want to bring this all the way over and I'm just going to take off the smallest corner. It makes a huge difference and it just helps to like elongate that curl and just give a really nice, beautiful round silhouette. So that type of graduation, swelling graduation, works beautifully for curly hair. Now let's talk about weight removal. My favorite way to remove weight is to come back to, here's a Mandy Artist series sliding shear right here with the curved blade. This is killer. If you guys, I know there's a lot of people who have been doing the air cuts now, right, from the Zani company, but also just if you're cutting individual strands of hair and want to remove weight and curl, this is great because we were talking about how ends need friends, right? I don't want to totally, and if I cut hard lines and curls, then you have these hard line curls. So as I come through with this, if I use a curved blade, and I'm going to show you up here, let's see if I can do it this way. Watch the beauty of this. It pushes as I go. You can see right there, it pushes as it goes. So it's going to give these really beautiful finishes to those coils so that they don't have that hard blunt line on the bottom. They actually taper off in a really smooth and rounded way. So when I'm working with curl and I'm doing this removal, I will come in and maybe even pick up individual curls, and I'll come in with my curved blade and just give a few little pushes through that curl to help soften it. So this technique, what's so great about it, it's really nice because it really works to so many different hair types, so many different textures, and gives really beautiful end results. Just remember, it's the outside exterior first, then we go into the interior. If I only, especially on long hair, if I only texture here, then I'm really not removing any weight here. And for our long-haired clients, this is where we have to remove weight to really make a difference and impact in their hair. So awesome question. So this is one of those times, Andrew, when I can really say like, yeah, this is awesome for curly hair too. We don't even have to change it up too much. All right, so now I want to come back to the front. A couple things. Now, keep in mind, and I'm going to recap this. We cut this perimeter first, right? And what we did when we cut this perimeter is that's what cut. Look at how we already have these face framing pieces. That was just in the perimeter. That's all we did. We haven't had to do any special tricks or anything around her face to change that in any other way. The whole goal was to give her a change, but also keep her length, which we totally did. Then we moved to that interior shape and start removing weight. And we can't just do it on the ends, we have to do it on the inside as well. Now, let's go through and continue with a little bit more. Let's talk about if we really want to come into the front and we want to do a little bit more detailing through there. Then I'm going to come back. Well, you know what? Actually, no, let's switch this up. Here's the other shear I've been using a lot of. This is the new 14 tooth point cutting shear. If you guys haven't gotten this, these shears are really, really awesome. I like how far apart, do you see how far apart those teeth are? But also those teeth are pretty chunked too. So I get really nice results when I want to remove weight. Here's what I want to have happen. Now I have somebody with high density hair. So remember, that means they have a lot of hair, right? And I want this to open up away from her face more because her hair is so heavy, it tends to push towards her. So I'm going to utilize over direction, and I'm going to take this first side. And remember, over direction leaves weight and length in the opposite direction, and it puts movement in the opposite direction. So I'm going to bring this hair all the way over across her forehead to the opposite direction. Now I'm going to come in with my texture shears, and these are the 14 tooth point cutting shears. And I'm going to actually just do a little bit of pushback with these. Let's do it this way. Now notice I'm keeping the teeth on top. So that means I can open and close without the teeth getting in the way every time it opens and make it easy to come out. If I put the teeth underneath, then I have to actually drop the shears and it's more uncomfortable. So I like the teeth being on top. Now I'm going to come in. Remember, whenever we're going to remove hair that we've texturized, come into the wide teeth with your comb, come over to open this up to the other side. Now, look at how nice that starts setting away from her face. So for those clients who are like, I want these short layers around my face, but they always then tend to fall in my eyes. Well, now we're encouraging with the principle of over direction, how to stay in control with that and keep it open away from her face. So let's do the other side. Coming in. Now I'm going to take the front of her left side. I'm going to over direct that to the opposite side. Now I'm going to come in with my texture shears, and I want my teeth to be on top, and I'm just going to do a little bit of pushback coming. Not too much because I don't want to start weakening out the ends. That was about 4 pushes is all I did with that. And just know what type of texture shears you're using when you go through with that technique, because depending on how close or how far apart the teeth are going to give you a different end result. So I just want you to see, look at how, I mean, that just stays away from her face so easily on both sides. Really, really pretty on that side too. So we're making her life easier by utilizing over direction and working through there. You know, if I were to go ahead and with, let's say if you guys have reversible blenders, look at those reversible blenders versus this is the 14 tooth point cutting shear. Just notice the difference in the teeth. So I want you to, before you use these techniques, I want you to get out your texture shears. And I want you to note, are my teeth far apart with chunky blades, or are they close together with fine blades? It's going to give you a different end result each time. If I come in with this type of blade where they're closer together, then, and I know you guys have seen Sam do this because this is something that he loves and this is where I learned it from him, then I can come in and I actually can weave out the hair because those teeth are closer together. So you can see it closer together. Then I'm still removing weight, but I'm not taking away from the density. That's how I'm going to work with it when I have a texture shear where the teeth are closer together, versus when the teeth are farther apart, I don't necessarily have to weave out those sections. So coming through. Now, what I want to do, because I want all of this movement to come away from her face, I'm going to continue around, and I'm going to over direct this in. I'm going to switch over to these texture shears, and I'm going to come in and teeth on top. Just give a couple pushes. So this is going to continue to encourage all of this hair to move away from her face with her layers. Oh my gosh, I just think that's so pretty. So pretty.
What section are you picking up to put that texture into there again?
So keep in mind, this all comes back, you guys, everything we're doing is working through this vertical breakdown. So whenever I take up a section, whether it was I was working through the perimeter with vertical breakdown, but also as I take these sections, I'm literally taking this, let me find it here, this bevel, and then I'm going to bring that and over direct it to the front, and then work it with my texture shears, then drop it back in place. Then I'm going to come to the bevel behind that one here, this bevel, and then I'm going to elevate that towards her face. I'm working with the camera on here. Cut it and drop it back, because that will create weight and length in the opposite direction. That's going to move away from her face. So for all of my graduation, however I picked it up today, it was in these sections that I was picking them up. So hopefully that helps. This is all about vertical breakdown. And you know, while we're on that subject, Andrew, I'll remind you guys, we do, like I work and teach at Cut and OY at the Redken Exchange. And in that program, our first class back is mid-September, so just next month. So all of these things that I'm talking about, vertical breakdown, swelling graduation, talking about over direction and what happens whether you're working with fine, high, thick, thin, density, texture, all of those things, we touch on that at Principle Based Design, which is a 4-day program in New York. If you guys are ready to travel, I know we still have some tickets left, but also as we come into 2022, in addition to all of the amazing education that Sam and our team here puts on, know that there's those other opportunities to come visit us in New York. And we are super excited to be back to live education. I know you guys just had a great weekend at the BTS Behind the Chair show. I think you were at this weekend. I saw some amazing pictures, which was cool too. So overall, you guys, here's what we wanted to touch base on. You look at how pretty she is. Oh my gosh, beautiful. How do we take long hair and help our clients maintain their length, but give them something different that's trend focused, where we're seeing short in the front and long in the back? This is basically two things. While the hair is wet, you cut the perimeter, breaking it into small bevels, starting with a guide in the front, and then making small connect the dot guides, and continue with your razor all the way through the perimeter. Then dried it. And today when I dried her hair, if you guys are Redken lovers, I'll tell you, this stuff is the new velvet gelatine. If you're a velvet gelatine fan, we just amped it up. It's now called Big Blowout, and it has heat protection in it and tons. Look at that shine, tons of shine. So that's gonna give us a perfect finish. So then we can go in and blend, which is what happens on the ends, and remove weight and movement, which happens on the inside of the hair, utilizing that swelling graduation. So the hair came up and over the head shape, so we get a round silhouette, which is what we need with our long hair clients, so they feel like they're getting volume and body in their hair. And then just using over direction to help hold that hair all away from the face. So just some super easy things. And you guys know, of course, if you ever have any questions or follow-up, or when you do this haircut, please tag me on Instagram under Fancy Finish. And I'm always there to help out whenever you guys need stuff. But I would love to see your work and hear about your results with this haircut.
Hey, before you jump off, Karen actually had a really good question that doesn't kind of get brought up very often. She was asking, how often would you texturize like that if clients are getting cuts every 6 weeks? I'm thinking every other cut. This is a great question.
Yeah, super good question, Karen. Thank you for asking it. You know, I'll tell you that, yeah, it does depend. It depends on how often they're getting a haircut. I don't know about your long-haired clients. My long-haired clients tend to go 10 to 12 weeks between haircuts. My short-haired clients tend to be about 5 to 6 weeks. Now, if I'm having a client who's coming in every 6 weeks, You're spot on, Karen. Only do that weight removal every other haircut because that puts them on that 12-week schedule for weight removal. If they're coming in 10 to 12 weeks, I also think that then you can kind of get away with doing a little bit more. But another thing you want to make sure you tell your clients, when you're working with weight removal that's this strategic, their best end result is going to be to continue to book with you and in your chair, because you're going to do weight removal one way, somebody else is going to do weight removal another way, and at the end of the day, your client will end up with hardly any hair on their head because there's no consistency of the method, unless you speak the same language. And you were both here today watching the Sam Via live program with us, so you know the same techniques, if that makes sense too. So thank you for asking that question.
Fantastic, Mandy. Thank you so much. This has been super packed with education, and everything that you shared was really, really salon friendly, and I think very immediately usable. So thank you so much for the details, and again, just for making it very approachable.
Of course. Thank you so much, Andrew. I love all of you guys at the Sam Via family, and thank you so much to all of you who joined today for continuing education. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. What a great day of education to kick off our huge week of education. Tomorrow, the 24th, don't miss Transformation Tuesday. That's back here on the Facebook and YouTube channel. We've got Carla Valenzuela joining us for beautifully braided updos. The 25th on our Instagram Live, we have the awesome Amanda Ziegelman. They're going to be sharing some hand styling, creating texture with us. And again, on the 25th, back here on the YouTube and Facebook channel, join us. We're going to be talking with Lindsay Olson about the artist's journey, the life of living, travel on the road, being behind the chair. And then on the 26th, back on Instagram Live, we've got Blake Reed Evans, and Blake's going to be sharing some bobs, angles, and shapes. Also on the 26th, if you are working in a hair school, we do have a program that's specifically for our partner schools called Skills Up. We do allow schools to come in and be a guest and check out what we're doing in that. If you are interested, you can head to samvia.com/skillsup. And if you are in Chicago for the ABS show, make sure you stop by and say hello, because we've got the team there. We've got Sam and Jesse and Al and Twyla and Evie. And so we have got a great crew at America's Beauty Show this week. So thank you all so much for watching. Lots more to come this week, so stay tuned. Take care.